Basically, in LA, everybody goes to him. He's operating.
It's powerful, it's evidence-based, and the results are truly transformative.
Hello and welcome everyone. It's good to be here. You may know me as the co-host of Morning Joe or not, and the founder of my women's empowerment platform, Know Your Value. I'm Mika Brzezinski. It's great to be here. And it was through Know Your Value that I became friends with LYMA founder Lucy Goff, who I have had so much fun getting to know. We have traveled the world together already. Lucy was recognized on the Forbes and Know Your Value 50 over 50 list this year. And she founded LYMA at the age of 45. But it was the year that she turned 50 that her business really kicked into high gear. Her ex-husband, then the company's CEO, left the business, and Lucy began building the business and the brand by herself. Now at the age of 51, Lucy is at the helm of one of the fastest growing health and wellness businesses in the world. Alongside Dr. Graham Glass, a plastic surgeon and LYMA's director of aesthetics, their laser made Time Magazine's best inventions list. And last year, LYMA was named one of Europe's fastest growing companies by the Financial Times. And I personally, one of the reasons why Lucy ended up on the 50 over 50 list is because I love her personal story behind this. It really is the epitome of know your value, and especially the 50 over 50 lists. Come in and have a seat, where it's really never too late to make a career pivot, and that women can look their best and live their best lives in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and even 90s. And that's really the concept of the 50 over 50 list, that we have sort of tapped into a groundswell of incredible women around the world who are reaching their highest heights, having their greatest impact, and even finding that much desired, much searched for happiness, starting families after the age of 50, well after. So this story of LYMA fits right into that as well. Lucy, let's talk about LYMA, because there's a personal story behind all of this that I think is fascinating. It wasn't necessarily your plan. Tell us about it.
No, well, first of all, thank you so much, Mika, for being here today. And thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. It's amazing that a British brand, a new British brand, has really got so much interest in America. America's our biggest market, and we're really proud of that. And I guess Mika's right. I never set out to launch a business at all. And it wasn't until after I had my daughter in 2012 that everything went wrong with the birth. And I ended up catching septicemia. And I was in hospital in the intensive care for like 6 weeks while they were battling to ultimately save my life. And it wasn't really until I was at a clinic in Geneva recovering that my mum, who I think was just entirely fed up of me at the time, got speaking to a longevity professor, a guy called Professor Paul Clayton, who was there speaking at a conference. And she was explaining my story. And he said, well, I know some supplement ingredients that will really help her feel better again, to help her feel herself again. And I thought, well, I'm never going to hear from him again. And then a few weeks later, I get this package in the post, and it's like all these ingredients that I should take every day. There were 16 tablets to take every day. And literally within a couple of weeks, I felt myself again, and I was back at work. And that was really the impetus for starting LYMA, that you're never too late. The power to begin again, every morning that you wake up, the power to begin again is there. And I wanted to empower people with these incredible ingredients to help them feel themselves again. Everyone in life suffers from sleep or stress or bad skin at some stage. And, LYMA takes solutions from the medical industry and puts them into the supplement and the cosmetic industry. In 2020, we launched LYMA Laser, which Graham was so instrumental in bringing to market, like this huge floor standing hospital machine that cost like $40,000, and engineering it when everybody said we couldn't do it, engineering it into this little portable laser at exactly the same power that you could just keep in your handbag and use on the go. So yeah, it's been an incredible journey, and every day I challenge myself to think, the power to begin again lies within us all. It's never too late. Genuinely, I had my second child at 49 when I thought I could never have another child. So, if you kind of really go for things, I guess some things will come off, some things won't, but never stop trying.
Never too late. Dr. Glass, then tell us about the lasers technology. And I mean, I love how Lucy says this big, huge machine you were able to, this is it, make it into a small device. What does it actually do? What happens when you put it on your skin?
Okay, so thank you, Mika, for the introduction. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's based upon we sometimes call it cold laser or cold laser technology. It's based upon a phenomenon called photobiomodulation. So to take a step back a little bit, most medical devices work by causing a degree of tissue injury. And it's actually the tissue injury that causes an inflammatory response, and the inflammatory response brings about healing. But the problem about inducing an inflammatory response to bring about healing is, well, firstly, to a certain extent, you can't control that inflammatory response because everybody's inflammatory response is slightly different. And secondly, that healing caused by inflammation is designed to heal quickly, but not necessarily aesthetically. We haven't evolved to make nice scars. We haven't evolved so that when an inflammatory process happens, things heal beautifully. They're designed to heal quickly because that is what keeps us alive. Cold laser technology works fundamentally differently. It does not induce tissue regeneration by first causing a tissue injury. And you might think, well, hang on a minute, that sounds almost too good to be true. What happens is that there is, now, as we understand it, light of a very particular wavelength is selectively absorbed by a molecule in the mitochondria of your cells. The mitochondria is the battery pack, if you like. And what that does is it accelerates the process of making units of chemical energy. And these units of chemical energy, when they build up in the cell, actually make the cell behave in a different way. It wasn't understood at the time. It's now
As skin
called
ages, the cells
epigenetics.
become less active, and the rate at which the skin's building blocks are broken up accelerates. Skin loses elasticity, struggles to hold on to water, and wrinkles start to form. The LYMA laser delivers powerful cold near-infrared laser light deep into the dermis. The light is selectively absorbed by mitochondria and converted into a chemical energy which makes the cell more active and produces signals to stop the breakdown of collagen, elastin, and hyaluronic acid in the dermis. Signals are produced to encourage the formation of tiny blood vessels, which help to deliver more oxygen, nutrients, and immune cells to the skin. This energizes the immune cells, causing them to perform better and accelerate skin repair. Enhanced immune surveillance in the dermis leads to the zombie cells being identified and eliminated. These are replaced by healthy skin cells. Skin density increases, skin becomes smoother, and wrinkles decrease. With continued daily use, the effects accumulate.
Okay, so that is sort of the science behind it. And Lucy, I want to know, first of all, because I guess this is available now in the US, what makes this beauty launch different? And can you just show us how to use it? How do you get, I mean, I understand the science now, but how does one actually get the benefits from this small device?
I mean, it's just so easy to use. I mean,
and you use it.
So I use it every day. Try to use it even twice a day, if I can. And basically all you do is you switch it on and you put it over your skin for 3 minutes. I mean, that's all you do. And then the light flashes. So this red light is not the laser. This red light is just an LED to tell you the device is switched on, because you can't see near infrared laser light with the human eye. So you'd never know whether the device was switched on because it's completely cold and completely sensationaless. So yeah, that's all you do. You place it over each section of your skin for 3 minutes. And it is, I think the reason why this is so different is because the cold laser light will penetrate biologically all the way to the bone, without losing power, and still have biological power. So it's amazing for areas like the neck. So obviously I'm 52 and my neck was the giveaway sign that, you know, it was like, it was not going how I wanted it to go. And, you know, the skin on your neck looks only as good as the muscle that sits beneath it. So if the muscle is sagging, the skin will sag as well. And this will regenerate the muscle tissue and the skin tissue simultaneously to give you that completely transformed look. And it works in a different way to everything else that's out there. You know, that this is the only laser technology that doesn't damage your skin in order to stimulate collagen production. So it produces a different form of collagen or different blends of collagen than other devices, which is why it's such a game changer.
And how long do you, first of all, you hold it for 3 minutes in each spot, right? At least once a day.
Yeah.
And then how long till you see results? How do you gauge results?
You'll see results in the first 2 weeks for sure. So always take a good before shot, that's for sure. Because you can't feel the laser, it's completely cold. So your body's kind of, in a sense, trained to think, well, if I can't feel it, it's not working. But then if you take another shot 4 weeks later, and then 8 weeks later, and then 12 weeks later, you know, after 12 weeks, you'll go, wow. And then you just use it a couple of times a week ongoing to maintain the results.
I'm curious, Dr. Glass, if you could take us through, I mean, especially with at-home devices, which I think can be pretty pricey. This one's pretty pricey as well. There's a lot of skepticism out there. What are some of the myths? Bust them for us and give us guidance on what to look for when you're buying technology that you usually go to a medical spa to, you know, for these treatments for Clear and Brilliant or Elicor or whatever. Where is the pathway to get a product that you really can get results at home, and what are the wastes of money?
Okay, well, I think first and foremost, I think the idea that when it comes to aesthetics, no pain, no gain is definitely a myth that needs to be busted. I think we've all subjected ourselves to sometimes rather painful treatments, and those painful treatments, they're painful because they cause injury. Okay, and as I said before, this doesn't cause injury as a means of inducing a regenerative response. In terms of the types of technologies that are out there, we've kind of broached on several of them so far. There's things there's radio frequency, there is infrared, low-level infrared lasers. There's LED, of course, which we'll talk about in a bit. But most of them cause heat.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them induce an inflammatory response, either because of the production of heat, which denatures proteins in your dermis, or because it causes something called the release of heat shock proteins. Heat shock proteins are actually one of the most primitive forms. I've heard it described recently as being, the newest thing in facial aesthetics, but actually amoeba have heat shock proteins. It's to tell them that the swamp is getting a little too warm. And it doesn't necessarily translate to a better regenerative response just because you're inducing a degree of tissue injury to have it. In fact, we were saying earlier on that radio frequency is one of these things where actually if you were thinking about having surgery afterwards, it makes the surgery more difficult because it obliterates planes and causes scarring. It causes scarring underneath the skin. So there are lots of different technologies out there. The way that the LYMA laser is different is it doesn't first induce an injury in order to produce a regenerative response. That in itself is a game changer. And that's why it's suitable for everyone.
The one thing I think of is like the red light masks that a lot of people wear, the red light machines or LED lights. What's the difference there, and what's the science, the proof that this works?
Okay, so I'm not going to disparage LED. LED to a certain extent does cause photobiomodulation. It's the same fundamental technology. The problem with LED is the way the light is packaged causes the energy that is carried with it to dissipate rapidly as it progresses through the skin to the point at which it is not inducing this regenerative response. Let me explain. It was first thought that when this phenomenon was discovered, that it was never going to be possible to make a laser that we could use. So people started looking around for alternative sources of light to make this commercially viable. And LED was an obvious choice because you could produce an LED which produced light of the same wavelength. And it was previously thought that the only thing that mattered was the wavelength. So therefore, if you produced an LED of a near infrared wavelength, it would produce the same effect. The problem is that there are multiple things that happen when light hits skin. The first thing it can do is reflect. Now, if you've ever used an LED mask, you see that your skin glows red. That's reflected light. Okay, reflected light is lost to the ether. It's not penetrating the skin, therefore it's not involved it's not inducing a biological response. The second thing it can do is it can transmit through the skin. Again, if it transmits through the skin and it doesn't interact, it's not biologically active. The third thing that it can do, and this is the biologically active side, is it can refract. Now that means it passes through the skin and it interacts with the skin and it changes direction as it does so. Those molecules, those waves of light either scatter, they diffract, so they bend round molecules that they come across, or they are absorbed. And it's the absorbed component that we're interested in because it's the absorbed component that converts light energy to chemical energy. Okay? Now, the problem is that light, as it passes through the skin, interacts with itself. And the problem with LED light is because LED light is what we call out of phase. The waves are all lined up very differently. When they interact with each other, they cause something called destructive interference. They obliterate the energy that is carried with them, and that obliterated energy is lost as heat. So that's another reason why if you use an LED mask, it feels quite hot, particularly with prolonged use. Laser light is fundamentally different. Because all laser waves are in phase, what happens when they come into contact with each other is instead of obliterating, they actually amplify the energy that's carried with them. So as the light penetrates the skin, it is retaining enough energy that when it is absorbed, it is causing this phenomenon called photobiomodulation. LED light works, but probably only within a few micrometers, and then the energy that's carried with it rapidly or exponentially drops, so that with further depth, it's not really doing anything.
So we're going to open it up to questions, but just a final question for Lucy, because I see a lot of women in this audience from different ages, backgrounds. Who is LYMA for?
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, there's been, I think with every new technology, and this is a new technology for the cosmetic market, you know, there's a lot of education, which is a big opportunity for us. There's been lots of myths that have been kind of said about LYMA. It's, you know, it's the same as an LED. It's the same as other at-home laser technologies. It's the same as like a $400 non-fracture laser. You know, there's like lots of. This is different to everything. It's not the same as red light. We have got really incredible clinicals that we've been doing over the past couple of years. And this is one of them where we've looked at gene expression in the dermis using the LYMA laser, and then using, we got Imperial College in London to build an exact same device at exact same power, but using LED as a light source, not laser. And you can see this is an illustration of how LED is not able to penetrate through tissue like laser can. So laser light just goes straight through, and LED is reflected. So it doesn't go through. This is actually a paper that Graham has written that's been published in Aesthetic Surgery Journal. So, I mean, he's obviously better placed to explain the science behind it, but fundamentally, it's, you know, there are a lot of myths associated with this technology, but we really, really, really want to educate people as to how it works, why it's different, and how everything can sit together, you know, like how it can sit with microcurrent. You know, microcurrent is great to give you a lift before you want to go out, before a party. You know, LED is great to give you a glow. You know, everything has its place, but this is a technology that can rebuild your skin from the base layer up in a way that other light technologies can't. And that's its difference.
For all women and men.
For all women, for all men, for all creatures, great and small.
There you go. I'll leave it there and open it up for questions from the audience, if there are any. Oh, yes, there are. Okay, right here.
Not a question, but just from my experience, Graham, the way how you explained to me the difference between LED and light and LYMA laser light. That was the best thing, the simplest thing, and I think that everybody will understand that.
Okay,
yes.
Thanks. It's quite, thank you, Joanna. It's quite a difficult thing to explain the difference between constructive interference and destructive interference. So a good way of thinking about it is to have a perfectly flat, calm pool of water, and to have a handful of gravel. Now, if we're using an LED is like dropping a handful of gravel into the flat pool of water. It causes lots of waves, but lots of these waves cancel each other out. So what happens is there's no real depth of penetration to it. It's chaotic and it's short acting, and then the pool of water goes calm again.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is that the laser is like singularly dropping one of these grains of gravel in, but to do so at exactly the right periodicity to amplify the wave every time, which increases the depth of penetration.
Next question, right there. Go ahead. Yes.
I think a lot of patients with thyroid disease, I'm always cautious about devices over the thyroid.
Sure.
Could you speak to that, if that's safe and if that's a contraindication?
Okay, so it's an excellent point, and it's one that is worth mentioning to everyone. Anything which causes injury by way of inflammation might be expected to be improved by the laser because it's inherently anti-inflammatory. We know that from the gene studies. It upregulates genes associated with which are anti-inflammatory. It downregulates genes which are pro-inflammatory. The one contraindication to is that if you have an overactive, say, thyroid, which is not caused by pro-inflammation, then you might be expected to actually increase the thyroxine production as a consequence, and therefore we would advise not to use it on that area of the neck. I think
You can use it if you've got an overactive thyroid. So if you've got an underactive thyroid, it's fine. If you've got a normal thyroid, it's fine. If you've got an overactive thyroid, the way that you use it is you put it over the side of the neck, not over.
Yes.
Is this the second edition of this model, of this product? And if so, is it different than the first?
It's exactly the same. So basically, the original LYMA laser is exactly this. If you place the original LYMA laser over each section of your skin and keep it there for 3 minutes, it delivers 12 joules of near-infrared cold laser light over the 3-minute session. So this delivers exactly the same dose, but the other laser's got an 8-centimeter treatment lens, and this has got a 30-centimeter treatment lens. So the biggest piece of feedback that we were getting for the original LYMA laser was, if you want to treat larger areas of your face or your body, it can take you too long. So the LYMA laser is great to treat, if you've got an area of pigmentation, if you've got a scar, to treat wrinkles around your eyes, something like that. But if you want to transform the skin on your face, neck, and body, then this has got a way bigger treatment lens. So it's actually engineered with 3 LYMA lasers inside one device. So it's 3 times the power and nearly 4 times the size of the treatment lens. So you can treat the face and body faster with this machine.
Should it still total out to 30 minutes total, or do you pick and choose 3
The
minutes?
way that you use this is you hold it over each section of the skin that you want to treat for 3 minutes. So if you just wanted to transform that area and that area of your neck, then you just hold it 3 minutes and then 3 minutes. So you just hold it for 3 minutes over each section of your skin for every day.
I just wanted to add to that to say that the calculated dose was based upon all the preclinical and clinical studies. So it turns out that if you are going to increase the surface area, you've got to do some pretty fancy calculations to work out how much extra laser power you have to get the same dose delivered at the same time. So that's what we did, and that's why everything is slightly bigger, but it delivers the same dose.
And I think it's kind of also interesting because I get served everything on my algorithm because I'm looking at everybody's websites. But I see some devices that are saying, they're like 3 times more powerful than the LYMA laser. Well, you can't compare the power to the LYMA laser because this is the exact power that this technology has to be in order to regenerate tissue. If this technology was more powerful, it wouldn't work. So it's delivering the exact dose of laser light that it needs to for this technology, which is why it's a precise power for this technology. and this technology alone.
Yeah, be very careful with comparative studies about power, because it's actually meaningless.
Next question, right here.
Actually,
Two.
one is, has anyone who used it had any sort of adverse reaction, or is there something like, is there like, if you have sensitive skin or anything like that, have you seen any reaction to anyone, or does it just feel pretty safe for everyone?
I mean, so the LYMA Laser has been going it since 2020, and we've never had a contraindication.
Thank you.
But it's an anti-inflammatory, you know, the light is anti-inflammatory, so it would be quite difficult. Yeah, I mean, if you've got a fungal infection, you should not put any form of light treatment on it. So, you know, if you follow the protocol, then no.
And my other question for you is, I know we've been talking a lot about LED masks, and I feel like probably everybody in here has one. Is it okay to use them together? I mean, not at the same time, but if you're using your LYMA, should you discontinue LED use, or can you continue LED and also do LYMA?
That's a very good question. There is, to a certain extent, a cumulative dose response, what we call a biphasic dose response with the cold laser technology. So in other words, it is theoretically possible to overdose on the amount of energy that you are dispensing to your tissues, and therefore the positive effect that you get from it begins to wane to the point where you actually have completely mitigated the positive response. You have to really go somewhere to get there if you're using the laser alone, but it's theoretically much more possible, at least at a very superficial surface where the LED mask is active, of overdoing the amount of near infrared energy distributed to the skin, and therefore just you're just nullifying the response.
Interesting. Here in the front. Go ahead.
This is a question for you, just as a female founder. What's your vision for LYMA as a company? Do you ever think of an exit strategy, or what would be your dream for the company?
I mean, when I started LYMA, I never dreamt that it would be as successful as it was. So I didn't kind of set out with a predefined exit or anything like that. But I think now that we have disrupted, you know, we've disrupted the supplement sector with a category of evidence-based nutrition. We've introduced this new technology to the cosmetic sector. And the way, you know, we're doing some really interesting work now looking at the medical parameters of this technology. So doing clinicals on heart health, on brain health, on joint health, on pain management. So we're really exploring the medical side of this technology, which is ultimately very exciting.
Yeah, it really is. Right here.
How does it interact with skincare? And I've heard specifically like green tea helps LED transform in a stronger way. Is that true? And what do you recommend skincare with this device?
Okay, green tea.
It's like all over TikTok and Instagram. Like if you use some type of green tea serum, it helps with the LED.
Okay, so green tea is the active ingredient. The reason that you're drinking it is the antioxidant properties of the green tea. Okay, there is to a certain extent, cold laser technology and LED technology is both pro-oxidant and antioxidant, depending upon what it needs to be. In other words, it balances the oxidative state of the cells perfectly. Adding into the mix a big dose of antioxidant just means that the cell's got to work harder to rebalance, because actually not all there's this kind of myth that antioxidants good, pro-oxidants bad. Actually, it's the balance that in the cells that's really important here. So it's a very interesting question. I can't think that the two are inherently complementary. It probably doesn't make any difference.
Right here.
But for skincare, I mean, you've actually raised lots of people go, oh, I have to use LYMA skincare with this. The reality is yes, we've got a serum and a cream. It's an epigenetic formula that's been formulated to enhance the biological effect of the laser light, but you can use it with anything. You know, you can use it with retinol, you can use it with vitamin C, you can use it with anything. There's no contraindications for this technology.
Hi. So for me, I wanted to know, does the laser itself travel? So for example, if I'm using it on the upper zygomatic area, and like the concept of when we apply our eye cream, we say put it on the bone, right? The orbital bone, it'll travel, right, to the thinner areas. So if we're focusing, say, on the jowl, will the laser travel more like upper? Does it travel under the
That's a really good question that Graham can answer. On the basis I failed biology at school, I think Graham should answer that.
Yeah, so, okay, in the wider context, what you're really asking is there a systemic response to laser therapy, or is it very localized? In other words, does it only work on the area that it's active on? And interestingly, the clinical evidence for this is somewhat divided. Okay, I know that's not particularly helpful to you, but it's the truth. There have been some studies which have actually taken blood samples and have shown that the balance of pro-inflammatory cytokines and anti-inflammatory cytokines changes with exposure to the laser in a focal area. Now, that would be suggestive that there is a systemic anti-inflammatory response. But in terms of, we haven't really seen a systemic response to tissue in response to the laser. It's very localized. So much so, in fact, that some studies use hemiface studies, you know, in order to show the difference.
Okay, right here.
I sort of want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about pain management or using the laser on joints. Is there any indicators that, since you're saying this laser penetrates through the skin and to the bone, is there any indication that applying the laser to a sports injury or an area of pain, that it would reduce the inflammation on a tendon or muscular level?
Yeah, anecdotally, most certainly it does. However, the regulatory framework for making clinical claims is a completely different ballpark from the regulatory framework around aesthetic claims. And that's why we've stayed well clear of that one. I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I use the laser on my knees and on my elbows and on my shoulders, and it definitely helps me.
I mean, we've just done a clinical on people who are people who had knee replacement surgery, and the results are astonishing on the inflammation and the reduction of swelling and the increased mobility on people that have just had a knee replacement. So it definitely does work, but that's why we need to go through these clinicals to then extend our claims on the products.
Question right here.
More about how the laser treats irritated skin. When that slide came up, I was like, ooh, because I have rosacea. You know, I've done everything the messy topical cream route that gets on your pillows, and oftentimes I feel like laser treatments that do cause an inflammatory response are recommended, which I'm very cautious of as someone prone to hyperpigmentation. So I'd just love to learn more about how the laser treats that sort of condition.
Yeah, okay, so rosacea is a pro-inflammatory condition, okay? So yes, you're absolutely right. You're definitely sailing pretty close to the wind if you're using a pro-inflammatory thing like a high-energy laser, something that causes a tissue injury in order to try and treat that. What you're trying to do is you're trying to overwhelm this localized, the inflammation with the rosacea with a tissue injury that you hope will induce such a profound inflammatory response that it will actually get rid of the rosacea. Well, actually, the jury's out on that one. Mm-hmm. The LYMA laser, on the other hand, is anti-inflammatory. So there's every reason to think that it would be helpful. and there's definitely no reason not to use it, which is also an important thing to know. Because the one thing you don't want is making it worse.
Yes.
So regarding rosacea, me performing treatments on the clients and using myself, I have rosacea stage 1. That was the quickest fix for me. Rosacea and any inflammatory noticeable situations on the skin that, let's say regarding your elasticity and the glow, you need to take more time. Rosacea, 2 to 3 days, you notice the difference.
That's
I mean, that was with treatment. Even during the treatment, at least was flattening the flare-ups. Yes, redness was still remaining, but the flare-ups were flatter.
Thank you. It's on my cheeks. I'm like, I don't
Same-
need a
same
baby
here.
face at 30 and plus
Same here.
baby
And
cheeks.
it's going to resurface again because it's not curable, but it's treatable. Rosacea, right? And you can definitely reduce it. So that's all.
Thank you.
Next question. Any more? Yes, sir.
I had a quick question. Thank you guys also for having us. Sorry to ask a
Thank you very much.
short question, but I understand that most most of these sorts of devices in the U.S. are FDA cleared, and I'm curious when it's this novel of a technology that you guys are sort of bringing into people's homes, how you approach that, and what sort of predicate technologies you guys relied on.
So I can answer that because to get the first FDA clearance for the LYMA laser was very, very difficult because because using the predicate device, there was no other predicate device. So we argued the fact in the end that we could use an LED as a predicate device, which is why on the first LYMA laser, although it's a different technology, because you'll see LED on all the 510K clearances state that they're using thermal heat to induce tissue repair. This is a different technology, but because the wavelength was the same and because the power output at the lens was equivalent in a way to, in the end, the lawyers were arguing what substantial equivalence meant in a legal scenario. And we argued with the FDA that for substantial legal equivalence, an LED could be used for the LYMA laser. Getting this Laser Pro through was obviously easier because we could use the LYMA laser as a predicate. So although the original LYMA laser sits in the surgical laser category, we were allowed to use an LED as a predicate for the FDA because of what the legal term of substantial equivalence was. But it works in a different way once it's in the body.
Next question. Yes.
Is there an origin for the name LYMA?
Oh, yeah.
Well, there is actually. I mean, LYMA actually in ancient Greek means the origin or the source. And because we launched as a supplement company, I just thought it was really nice, the fact that we were using these ancient ingredients that were thousands of years old and infusing them with like high-tech delivery systems. And like LYMA was the point where they both collided in the middle. It was also a 4-letter word, and there was not a lot available on the 4-letter word space. So yeah, that's what LYMA means.
Okay, one more question right there.
If you get a cosmetic laser, like any treatment, and it works by the trigger response of damaging skin, is it bad to use this after to heal it?
No, you can definitely use this straight after anything. So like microneedling, anything invasive in a clinic is very, very good.
Yeah, so just to add to that, when you induce a tissue injury and you get the response, the repair response, you cannot control what types of collagen are being produced, okay? Take, for example, a hypertrophic scar. A hypertrophic scar is only a hypertrophic scar because it has a different blend of collagens to it than a non-hypertrophic scar, okay? So if you have a high-powered ablative laser which have many, I use them all the time. There's many good reasons to use them. then actually using the LYMA laser to help repair that is complementary, because it might lend itself to the inducing the correct blends of collagen.
Dr. Graham Glass and Lucy Goff, thank you very much.
Thank you,
LYMA.
everyone. Thank you, Mika.
Thank you very much.